Hi everybody, I'm Gail Z. Martin, and today I want to read an excerpt from a short story of mine that is in the Release the Virgins anthology. Now, that's an odd name for an anthology. Let me tell you how it happens. See, this is what happens when a bunch of writers and editors and publishers sit around at the bar at a convention and get talking. And somehow in conversation, bunch of writers, anything is possible, somebody made the comment, "Release the Virgins," and someone else said, "That sounds like an anthology," and someone else said, "I'd publish that," and the next thing you know, we all had story contracts. So that is the truth. There are folks who can attest to that, and they're all in the book. So the theme for the anthology was that we could write about anything we wanted, but somewhere in the story, the phrase "Release the Virgins" had to happen. So, very varied stories, but they've all got to come back to using that phrase somewhere in the story. Now, of course, I wrote in my Deadly Curiosities universe, which is set in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's all about getting cursed and haunted objects out of the wrong hands and stopping supernatural threats. So my story is Innocence Lost, and here's the start. I never saw him coming. A relaxing walk on Hassel Street suddenly turned into a contact sport when a skinny guy in a hoodie slammed into me. I stumbled toward the street and caught myself on a parked car. He staggered into the low bushes next to the parking lot but never slowed down, turning the corner onto crowded Meeting Street before I could catch my breath. "Are you all right?" The woman had a Midwestern accent, very noticeable here in Charleston, South Carolina. She might have been my mom's age, and she and her husband planted themselves on the sidewalk so everyone had to go around us, giving me a chance to catch my breath. "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks," I said, pushing a strand of strawberry blonde hair out of my eyes, more shaken than hurt. I'd gripped my small purse on reflex, but slung crossbody, nobody was going to get it away without a fight. Funny, but the guy who shoved me hadn't even been trying to take it. "Do you want us to call the police?" the man asked. I shook my head. "No, thank you. I didn't see his face, and he didn't take anything." "You could have been hurt," the woman huffed. She was right, but aside from perhaps a bruise where my hip hit the passenger handle of a car I smacked into, neither the car nor I were actually damaged. "Lucky for me it's a soft car," I joked. I thanked the couple again for their help and watched as they walked away toward the touristy parts of town. I stayed where I was, trying to get my bearings. I felt the pull of magic, something old and strong that hadn't been present moments before. It took a moment before I collected my jangled nerves enough to focus. A few steps brought me to where the man had stumbled into the shrubbery when he bounced off of me. The glint of gold caught my eye, lying beneath a short, slightly mangled boxwood. When I bent down, I saw a small statue of the Virgin Mary, no larger than my hand. The gold leaf paint looked real, as did the small gems that glinted on her Queen of Heaven crown. I grabbed my scarf and used it to pick up the statue without making skin contact, then I slipped it into my purse. What was a guy who looked rough around the edges doing with an old statue that gave off strong magic vibes? Stealing it was the obvious answer, but why? Maybe I'd end up calling the police after all, but before then, I needed to check into the magic piece of the puzzle and figure out what was really going on. I'm Cassidy Kincaid, owner of Trifles and Folly, an antique and curio store in historic haunted Charleston. Most people think of the store as a great place to find estate jewelry or the perfect vintage accent piece, but the store and I have some pretty big secrets. I'm a psychometric, which means I can read the history and magic of objects by touching them, hence the careful handling of the statue. And the store, which has been around since the city was founded 350 years ago, is part of a secret coalition of mortals and immortals who keep Charleston and the world safe from supernatural threats. So when I decided to have a closer look at the stolen statue, I wasn't just whistling Dixie. Even wrapped in my scarf and tucked into my purse, I could feel the buzz of the statue's magic as I power walked back to the store on King Street. Maggie, our part-time helper, was busy with a customer. Today, Maggie wore a sari silk broomstick skirt of many colors with a matching strip of bright pink tied into a headband around her short gray hair. Teagan, my best friend, assistant store manager, and sometimes bodyguard, looked up when I walked in. With his chin-length, asymmetrically cut dark hair and whipcord build, Teague looks more like a skater boy than the PhD dropout he really is. Let's just say he found a higher calling in kicking supernatural ass than finishing his dissertation. "Everything okay? It took you longer to get back than you expected." Teague automatically looked me over from head to toe, checking for injuries. I shook my head and walked to the break room. "You're limping," he pointed out. Someone ran into me pretty hard on the sidewalk, I said. My hip slammed into a parked car. Could have been worse. I glanced over at the customer, who was busy looking at beautiful old signet rings with Maggie, and Teague nodded, realizing there was more to the story. I'll be fine, I promised. Let me put my purse in the office and grab some coffee, and I can come help out up front. Mostly, I wanted to get away from the buzz of energy the statue put out, although I could use some Java, too. The store got busy then, and I didn't have a chance to talk to Teague for a couple of hours as we matched shoppers to their ideal antiques. As I wrapped up a large, heavy silver set, I wondered how the purchaser, who told me excitedly about the bus tour she was on, intended to get it home. I mentioned shipping, but she said there was plenty of room under the bus. Hopefully none of her fellow travelers decided to buy equally large souvenirs, or someone would be walking back to Toronto. By mid-afternoon, the influx had slowed to a trickle. Maggie waved us off, promising to yell if she got swamped. Maggie knows what we really do at the store, and she's a godsend. Teague and I headed to the break room, and I sat down with a sigh. Spill, Teague ordered, giving me a worried glare. I was coming back from lunch, and a guy in a hoodie ran past and slammed me out of his way. When I got my bearings, I felt magic tug me from the parking lot where he'd stumbled, and I found this. I pulled the scarf out of my purse and set it on the table, where the small statue rolled free. Teague leaned over for a closer look, but kept his hands behind his back. We've learned the hard way not to touch without sizing up the danger first. Looks old and authentic, meaning I don't think it's a souvenir piece. Want to bet it's stolen? That's what I figured, but it seems like a weird thing for someone to steal, I said, shifting on my chair to ease the tender spot on my hip. Easy to identify, hard to fence. As an antique store owner, I have to be very conscious of where the items we buy for resale come from and make sure the owner really owns them. That's aside from determining whether or not the pieces are cursed or haunted, which is true more often than people might think. Here, Teague went to the fridge and pulled out an ice pack, which he handed to me. Given the nature of what we really do, fighting off things that go bump in the night, the break room has an unusually robust first aid kit. I pressed the cold compress against my sore hip and sighed in relief. How about you sit with that ice while I see if I can pull something up online? Teague grabbed his laptop and went to work. He's got weaver magic, which means he can weave spells into cloth and hidden data into information, making him a hell of a hacker. Moments later, he looked up in triumph. Looks like there's been a rash of break-ins at churches all over the Low Country, Teague said. All of them Catholic, which isn't as common down here as it is up north, so that's interesting right there. Plenty of churches had valuable items, if a thief just wanted a quick buck. Silver items, antiques, artworks, even loose change in the donation box could be fair game for a grab and run. But the thief, or thieves, had concentrated on Catholic churches, which had to mean something. Can you tell what was stolen, I asked, trying to figure out the connection. Give me a sec. Teague's fingers flew across the keyboard. After a short while, he sat back, stared at the screen, and chewed his lower lip, a tell that he was trying to make sense of what he found. Anything? Yeah. In every case, all that was taken were statues, mostly of the Virgin Mary, but also of some saints. Not just the regular image of Mary, but some of the special ones like the Virgin of Guadalupe, the Virgin of Lourdes, the Virgin of Montserrat. Most were old, some were said to contain relics, and, get this, several had reputations for miraculous healing or warding off evil. Well, that explained the magic I'd sensed. Power, regardless of its source, calls to power. Miracle or magic, potato, potato. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Why? I mused, taking a sip of my coffee. Could be a collector with specialized tastes, Teague speculated, still glaring at his laptop like it could be intimidated into giving up the missing information. I shook my head. I didn't get a look at the guy's face, but when he bumped me, I got a glimpse of his emotions. He was terrified, and I don't think it was of the cops. So maybe it's like the kid in that movie who could see dead people? You know, where he made a blanket fort and stole all the crucifixes to keep the ghosts away? Yeah, I said as I weighed the statement and felt my intuition respond. I don't know what he was scared of, but that would make sense. It must be pretty big if he's the one knocking over all these churches, Teague replied, because there have been at least 20 break-ins according to the report I hacked into. I pulled out my phone and hit a number on speed dial. This is Father Ann, came the greeting. Hi, Cassidy. Father Ann Burgett is an unorthodox Episcopalian priest who moonlights as a demon hunter. She's one of our allies when shit gets real, and she's also wicked with cards against humanity. Hey there, I said, shifting again to keep the ice on my sore spot. What do you know about the thefts of statues of the Virgin Mary and random saints? She was quiet for a moment. Not much, other than the scuttlebutt I picked up through the interfaith meetings. Newsflash, clergy gossip. And when someone starts breaking into churches and stealing sacred objects, word travels fast. What are they saying? Aside from telling everyone to lock their doors? Some people think it's an attack specifically on the Catholic faith because it's only been their churches being targeted, Father Ann replied. Others have pointed out that Catholic churches are more likely than others to have really old, really valuable objects. Protestants don't usually go for as much bling. Anyone talking about a supernatural cause? Not out loud, she replied, but I've heard some whispering inside the society that the pattern could suggest the thief is either trying to summon something or ward it off, and neither of those options are good. The society was the St. Expeditious Society, a secret organization of priests dedicated to eliminating supernatural threats. Thanks, I said. Keep an ear to the ground for us, okay? We'll let you know what we find out because I've got a feeling that whatever's up ties into your area of expertise. So that is my story, and it's called Innocence Lost, and it is in the anthology called Release the Virgins. I'm Gail Z. Martin. You can also read my Deadly Curiosities urban fantasy series, from which Teagan Cassidy come, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.